All right, so back here on the 1978 Toyota pickup. So just trying to get the front suspension fully assembled. So was able to get everything on there. So coilovers, rotor, spindle, caliper, pads, all that stuff. I did torque down the ball joints to spec and pin those out because I don't expect to take any of that off. Same thing with the calipers. Those are all on there for real. The tie rod, I don't have that tightened down or alignment. You can see that it is pointing downwards just a little bit, ideally at ride height. Those are parallel, parallel with the ground, and it is pointed down just slightly, and so no sense in trying to get an alignment because it's not at proper ride height at this point. The coilover, you can see, is all the way at the bottom, and so the reason for that is there's no engine in there. And so once there's 1,000 pounds of engine, that'll be sagging down, and then I'll be adjusting the coilovers in order to get that at the appropriate ride height. So that's all looking okay. I don't love how much the lower part of the spindle is digging into the cup there. It'll raise up a little bit because they're not parallel, and so it'll be a little bit better, but I don't love it. So we'll see how it ends up riding. I don't honestly know, so we'll see. And then I just threw the stalkers on there because I still got a bunch of stuff that I got to move around, and I don't want my fancy wheels to get scuffed up or dinged or hit or anything. You see how to do something hilarious there. So those are the tightening screws for an angle grinder, and so the studs here are real long, assuming you're running some kind of alloy wheel with like a thick metal, and these are the old steel wheels, so they're super thin. Them studs are way too long. I should have probably got some open-ended lugs instead, but whatever. So I got those lugs on there and had to use the angle grinder lock key as spacers on both sides. I only got 2 lugs on there, but again, I'm not worried about that. So yeah, doing pretty good. The suspension does suspension things, so that's cool to see it on its feet. I must have changed the track width kind of like a ton, because you can see how much poke there is with the stalkers, and that's with like my little mini flare and fender pole going on, and they're poking out a little bit. And so I must have added at least 2 inches of track width, which is not what I intended to do, but that's reality. And then, it is riding a little bit monster trucky because, as I showed you, the coilovers are bottomed out and that arm is not parallel with the ground. So it'll lower down at least another inch, and then, the other wheel and tire is a bit bigger, and so it'll hopefully fill in a little bit more. I'd like to see it at least get another inch lower, because there's quite a lot of gap there that I'd like to get taken up. So we'll see how that ends up turning out when I get some weight in here. Looking at, stuff that I'm going to have to deal with. So that is the spindle for the power steering, and that is going to be tight. And so I do have enough room. This is a solid motor mount, and the plate just bolts right on top of that. So I only need enough clearance underneath here in order to get a bolt through. So that's not too bad. And there's plenty of room on this side. And so if I can take this and come up around and then get through the hole there, I think I should be able to do that. And I should be able to get 2 universal joints, one coming up right here, to get it to about there, and then another one coming back to go the other direction. But you know, we'll see how much of a horribleness that's going to be. I think the next thing I'll end up doing is trying to get the rear end squared away. You know, like I've had that axle sitting there or that housing sitting there for a long time. I think I'll probably work on that next in order to get that housing under here, and that way it's all on 4 tires. And then I'll, you know, put the engine in it and level everything. And I think that'll give me a better idea of sort of everything I'm dealing with. So, you know, I'd already cut out the mini flares on this side. And like I said, after putting tires on there, you know, I'm for sure, like, I'd cut off the existing lip. And so you know, the existing lip is, you know, probably about an inch or so wide. So I think I should be able to cover up the tires just fine. And honestly, I don't know how similar the offset is on these ones versus the ones that I got, if the other ones will be more inboard. But this way, you know, I can check clearance for steering, you know, go full lock both directions and just get an idea of what I'm dealing with. But yeah, so far pretty good. Everything bolted on okay, you know, basic stuff with spindles and calipers and everything. It's not really much different than changing pads and rotors on things. So yeah, looking pretty good. And you know, the engine, you know, I've got this sitting out and basically ready to go, but I think that I'm not going to try dropping that in until I do the rear end as well, because if I get a whole ton of weight, I will not be able to put it on the lift anymore. And so if I throw the engine in here right now, since the rear end has nothing in it, I won't be able to put it on the lift safely, or I'll have to use jacks and roll around on my back and everything in order to move it around. So I think if I can get the rear end put in it with wheels and tires and all that other stuff, I'll have plenty of weight back here, and then I can stuff the engine in it and it'll be balanced out. And so that way, you know, when I got to run brake lines and fuel lines and all that other stuff, I can get it up off the ground and not have to worry about using jacks and creepers and all that other nonsense. And so they just shifted gears a little bit after I got to thinking that, you know, I was going to put in the engine this weekend. Once I, you know, realized I didn't have any of the suspension or anything squared away, and it was going to be a major pain in the ass to have that heavy lump in there and not be able to use my lift anymore. That was going to suck. So but yeah, I think that this is going to be a good plan. I think I'll get after the rear end next, basically do the same thing that I did on the front, you know, get that bolted in with the coilovers and everything, and then it's more of the same, just, you know, throwing in axles, backing plates, calipers, rotors, all that stuff. So should be good. All right, thanks. See you in the next one.